On this channel, I post videos, on every channel I have actually, I post videos concerning flare guns for various reasons. Now you might think I'd be over with it by now, but no, I finally got enough information that I can do a video on this weird subject you're looking at. These are a type of flare cartridge that was created specifically to eliminate the need to use anything that looks even remotely like a firearm, so that it wouldn't get you shot by somebody who's defending themselves. And to make it much more compact and much safer flare cartridge for ordinary usage. In Russia, it's referred to in Russian as a hunter's signal. The Air Force had something based on these as well. And they're used, if you want to, in every country just about. Now, part of the design was to make it not look like a gun. So what it'll look like is a push-button pen. They're called pen launchers. Okay? But we're not discussing the pen launcher, because the pen launcher design is also used, if you're not aware of it, by people who use blank firing pistols. If you're not aware of it, blank firing pistols often use a cap or acorn round or whatever right there. Or they'll use 209 shotgun primers like this. And in order to fire a flare out of them, they include one of these without the rimfire, acorn, gallery gun, blank firing cartridge, or the 209 primer in it. It's one of these two here, the metal thing you're seeing. And you just screw it on the front of a blank firing toy gun, and it makes it to where it can fire flares. In fact, some countries will make it easier for you to sell these blank firers if you include the flare cartridge, because it gives it a legitimate safety usage. It's for signaling. So there it is. Now, obviously, the way they're usually used is in the case of the hunter signal or the U.S. Air Force version of it. It includes a really simple spring-loaded device that's shaped like a pen. It's called a pen launcher, and you screw this into it. And as you might imagine, one of the desires people had in each country is to make it to where it looks absolutely nothing like a firearm. Now, I want to point out, if it uses a shotgun primer like this one does, it's called a centerfire. There's variations of it. Some of them are confusable back and forth between the rim and centerfire. Some of them that look like rimfire are actually centerfire. Some of these weird-looking centerfire versions that look like the rimfire are also used as ammunition or shotgun primers as well. This doesn't mean that you can't chamber some sort of actual ammunition. It just means it doesn't look like a weapon, because the majority of the time you're not going to alter something that's a flare cartridge device and have it fire real bullets. I want to point out, though, because this rimfire blank here is called an acorn round. It has a little picture of an acorn on the bottom, sometimes called chipmunk shot or chipmunk ammo. I don't like discussing that. That means that this version that's a rimfire will chamber a 22 long rifle or 22 short if it has been altered. If it hasn't been altered, it should have a slight crimp or a pinch at the end here to keep you from putting a real cartridge in it. But anyway, we're not discussing alterations and illegal shit. Let's talk about some peculiarities. The threading standard for this that's used is the M9 by 1 millimeter threaded end on about half of them, or more than half, or all of them. I can't tell, because most of the companies don't give you this information. I'm giving it to you here. Next, it doesn't matter if you chamber the .223 outer diameter version of this that can also chamber, 22 long rifle, or the .24 inch inner diameter 24 caliber shotgun primers. What matters is the threading is the same, and that means that its outer diameter of it is the same diameter. It's supposed to be 9 millimeter standard, approximately. Next, this is also, if you have these, if you just pull this out, becomes an adapter for being able to use it on a blank firing gun. That also includes being able to use these plastic ones here. The only thing standard between all of them is the inner diameter is about 0.60 inches or 15 millimeter. What it does is it reuses civilian available fireworks modules that were available in Europe, and that's it. And they're for sparklers or for noisemakers or whatever that are fired out of blank firing guns or out of the flare gun, or used as independently produced fireworks for people. And they were just standardized at 15 millimeters, so people just reused that. it should be pointed out that another diameter that isn't 0.60 inches but 0.55 is used as a standard for the flare cartridges in America that go in that weird shotgun pistol plastic thing I like. They're the ones that you see in PUBG. Those are going to be 0.55 millimeter, or 0.55 inches, or the diameter of a AA battery almost exactly. Okay, so that's 14 millimeter. So you get the idea. Now the outer diameter of these things changes, but again, I want to point out that that's basically a bike axle diameter for a nut to go onto. It's used for the pen launchers, which look like a little zip gun, and also used for firing if you use a blank firing gun that uses 209 primers, or these 5mm or 6mm or whatever rimfire, as they're called. Now the variation in outer diameter is 16.6 millimeter or 0.653 inches, or 18 millimeter or 0.70 70 caliber, or whatever, and it'll have a length that's anywhere from 31 millimeters overall length, or 1.22 inches, to 2.2 inches, or 57 millimeter. And if you're not aware of it, that means that these can, if they use the centerfire function, be jammed backwards into an American standard flare gun, and you can probably set them off if you had to in a pinch. Because it's 18 millimeter, aka 0.7 inches, or almost exactly the proper diameter to stuff in, you can get away with it if you point it dead straight up, and you can use that to launch it. However, if it's rimfire, which the majority of them are in the United States, the idea with that is it's supposed to prevent you from putting real cartridges in, but all it does is it means that you could pop that out and stick in a 22 rimfire or something like that, which is a bad idea, obviously. But you'd be able to fire it, but only if it's centerfire shotgun primer based. And again, the shotgun primers require a pocket that's 0.24 inches, and the rimfire require a 0.22 something inch hole. Okay, now, why am I doing this video? Because I had a hard time finding the information, because the information isn't really proprietary, it's just that nobody bothered posting about it because it's not considered important, and because no one in their right mind would reload these. That's the quote you see. But the thing is, if you have one of these blank firing revolvers, or even one that fires, something else that isn't a revolver, the jet of gases, if it's a front firer, to make it legally easier to sell, they will sell it with basically one of these that's been used and use it as an adapter, because again, you can just buy the fireworks and just stick it in there. They're 15 millimeter, and they just jam in the other end, and it'll come out. Now, a trick with that, obviously, if you haven't figured it out by looking at it, if you want it to go higher in the air, and if you really want to be able to be seen or be helped by getting a rescue, if you're really using it as a flare gun, is you get one of these that's designed to fire something bigger. This is actually for firing something that makes a noise at altitude, which is nice. But this gives you a longer throat to the barrel, and it lets you throw the flare higher. I highly recommend, if you're going to have a flare gun and use these, that you either fabricate or fabricable one of these that's longer, even longer than 2 inches, or just find one of these plastic ones that's 2 inches and reuse it with the easily purchased from European Union countries and other countries fireworks devices, because they work. The red ones are considered safety flares. Now, the outer diameter of them, again, 0.7, that'll fit into and jam fit into a flare gun that you buy in the United States for a boat, which means you could use cheaper material, because paying $4 a pop is dumb. Sorry, but it is. Also, you can, again, these are plastic, you can drill it out and put a much more powerful shotgun primer in it, or a better version of the blank for the rimfire ones. I recommend the bigger rimfire ones. But if you're going to do the rimfire ones that are crimped, the crimped, blanks, you're going to want to use a metal one. So it's, I don't know. Now, can you make one of these out of something else? That's the first thing a lot of people came up with in content for looking at it. Remember that this is firing an object that may be 4 grams in mass, which is not ridiculously heavy. It also means it's technically less material than you fire out of a normal flare gun. It should also be pointed out that many flare cartridges that you buy, for the ones that look like shotgun shells, fire the same blasted thing. A little bit of the gases from this, or from your blank fire ignite the back end of it, and also propel it up. A longer tube would be better. Next. Well, the outer diameter here being 0.7 inches, you can get plastic tubing that size and kind of fabricable one of these together, or you can make a sub-caliber barrel out of plastic tubing and make it to where you have a long throw capability. All right. Now, what else can you fabricate it? I mean, aside from making your own PVC spud launcher or something, can you use anything else? Okay. Before anybody brings it up, the inner diameter of a nitrous oxide container or a CO2 cartridge won't fit, and you'll just waste a bunch of time doing it. And the outer diameter for its end bit cannot be threaded properly to do a good job for this unless you use a CO2 cartridge. You're wasting energy and time that way, and yes, there are aftermarket versions of these that are 3 inches long so they can take advantage of this height capability, and they take the shotgun primer or this, or just screw onto a blank firing gun and do a much better job than these stock versions. If your life depends on having a flare seen at altitude, I recommend hacking the hell out of this so that it goes as high as possible. Here's some specs for it if you're curious. The flare adapters, threaded, yada yada information there. They go up to 50 to 120 foot range. You can also get bird bangers. They require a completed wildlife control statement, or you can just get used ones and reload them only for flares, which is what I recommend. The BATF requirement is there, and you have to fill it out, but it's a piece of paper. You're just swearing under oath you're not going to misuse them. They may or may not be legal in Alaska, Hawaii, New Jersey, or in my state of Oregon because people misused them. It's always one jerk that causes this. Okay? Nitrous oxide containers do not have the inner or outer diameter characteristics to make this able to be hacked, at least not easily. So to review, use the plastic one with your flare as a flare launcher for your random blank firing gun. You can reuse it for that. If you need a metal version, you may have to refab-cobble one or look for a longer version of one of these that's made out of metal. When in doubt, you can just use what it came with. Make sure that you understand if it's rimfire or centerfire for your pen launcher. Make sure you get exactly the same thing that you need. And if you want to, my advice, I recommend getting both of these types so you can use either of them and find both flare launchers because you might just need them, if you need them. Next, you can make, if you do a trick, any flare gun that's that pistol-based one fire the same things. Also, yes, there's a trick. If you push it slightly off center, you can make the firing pin hit the edge and set it off, and it will still launch. The longer skinny ones here are better for that. When in doubt, get the correct launcher. Anyway, I'm just dumping the information I've got along with a bunch of links. You can look up the rest of it. Please post corrections if I'm wrong. Any corrections will be posted at the top of the description. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.